Hello, my name is Meryem Yılmaz Soylu and I am excited to share our work titled From Presence to Interpretation: How Confidence Shapes Immersive Literacy in VR. This project emerged from a simple but important question. As immersive technologies become more common in education, what actually helps students move beyond the feeling of immersion and toward deeper interpretation and meaning making today? Today, I'll share how confidence may play a critical role in that process. One of the assumptions often made about VR is that immersion automatically leads to engagement or deeper learning. But prior research has shown that this relationship is not always straightforward. Students may feel presence and still struggle to interpret multimodal meaning in meaningful ways. Similarly, affective responses such as excitement, anxiety, or enjoyment vary greatly across learners and do not consistently explain interpretive outcomes. So we began asking what transforms immersion into interpretation, and our findings pointed toward confidence as a potentially missing piece. In this study, we conceptualize confidence not simply as technical comfort, but as a form of immersive literacy readiness. Specifically, a learner's readiness to navigate, inhabit, and interpret multimodal cues within immersive environments. Our work draws from Bandura's theory of self-efficacy as well as the cognitive affective model of immersive learning. We extend CAMEL by proposing that confidence act as a bridge between presence and interpretive engagement. In other words, students may first need to feel capable inside immersive space before they can fully engage with rhetorical meaning. To explore this idea, we examined four questions. First, how students' VR confidence changed over time. Second, how confidence related to presence and emotion. Third, whether learner characteristics such as gender or prior VR ownership shaped outcomes. And finally, how high and low confidence students differed in interpretive engagement. For the learning activity, students experienced the VR performance of Hamlet's famous To Be or Not to Be excerpt using MetaQuest 3 headsets. The experience was designed around embodied interpretation. Students viewed the performance from a first-person perspective inside a 360-degree environment, allowing them to attend to gesture, tone, stance, proximity, and spatial positioning in ways that differ from traditional media. The goal was not simply to use VR as a novelty, but to examine how immersive perspective shapes rhetorical interpretation. Students also compared the VR experience with film and stage performance of the same scene. To scaffold interpretation, students analyzed four dimensions across modalities: audience awareness, gesture and facial expression, space and embodiment, and proximity and viewing angle. Together, these prompts encourage students to move beyond surface observation and think critically about how multimodal elements shape rhetorical meaning. Here are a few screenshots from the VR performance, the film, and the stage performance. This activity was embedded in a first-year multimodal communication course at Georgia Tech, organized around the woven framework. Theoretically, we extended CAMEL by suggesting that confidence is one of the readiness factors that helps explain how presence can lead to deeper interpretive engagement. In other words, feeling immersed may create the conditions for learning, but students also need to feel capable inside the VR environment before they can fully interpret what they are seeing. This connection became especially important when considering learner diversity and difference in prior access to VR technologies. Because many students had little or no prior VR experience, inclusive scaffolds were intentionally built into the activity. Students received headset onboarding, movement microdrills, side effect guidance, and guided interpretive worksheets. These supports were designed not only to reduce technical barriers, but also to help students with less prior access build confidence quickly enough to participate meaningfully in the interpretive task. We used a convergent mixed method design involving 44 first-year undergraduate students. Importantly, many participants entered with limited VR familiarity. Only 17% owned a headset. Nearly 40% had never used VR before, and most had never used VR in educational setting. Students completed pre and post surveys measuring VR confidence, emotion, presence, and interpretive worksheet, and also we use rubric-based writing assessment. Our first major finding was that confidence significantly increased after VR experience. The strongest gain appeared in technical operational competencies such as navigation, controller use, and guardian space setup. Interestingly, communicative skills remained relatively stable, likely because the task itself was individually oriented rather than collaborative. We also found that confidence aligned more closely with presence than with affective change. Students generally reported reduced anxiety and anger and slightly increased happiness. However, emotional shifts were not associated with confidence gain. Presence, on the other hand, showed a modest but meaningful relationship with post-session confidence. This suggests that immersion alone may not be sufficient, but presence can help create conditions where confidence develops. One of the most encouraging findings involved equity and access. Students who already owned VR headsets entered with substantially higher confidence. However, non-owners demonstrated the largest gain and nearly closed the gap by the end of the activity. This suggests that structured onboarding and inclusive scaffolds can meaningfully reduce disparities tied to prior access. Perhaps the most interesting finding emerged in qualitative analysis. Rubric scores between high and low confidence students looked relatively similar, but their reflections told a very different story. High confidence students consistently demonstrated deeper interpretive engagement. They attended more closely to audience awareness, embodiment proximity, and rhetorical meaning making. Low confidence students often remained more descriptive. What stood out most was the interpretive depth appeared only within the high confidence group. This suggests that confidence may function as a catalyst that helps learners move from noticing multimodal features toward actually interpreting them. Taken together, these findings suggest that confidence should not be viewed merely as usability outcome. Instead, confidence may function as a core dimension of immersive literacy. Theoretically, this refines Camille's by positioning confidence as a readiness construct, bridging presence and interpretation. Practically, it highlights the importance of designing immersive learning environments that intentionally support learner confidence through scaffolds, onboarding, and guided interpretation. This study suggests that immersive learning is not only about placing students inside virtual environments, it's also about helping them feel capable enough to interpret, engage, and make meaning within those spaces. Thank you so much for watching. We are excited to share this work with the iLearn community and we would love to continue the conversation. Please feel free to reach out by email with any question, thoughts, or reflections on the work. Thank you.